I'm James Turk. I'm a director of the GoldMoney Foundation, and it's my pleasure to be here today with Volker Harmeyer, the chief analyst of Bremer Landesbank. Volker, it's a pleasure, to meet you, and I've got a number of things I want to talk to you about, but let's start with the German economy. It looks like the economy is really softening over the past couple of months, and it might be going into a recession. Do you see a recession coming?
I'm not seeing a recession coming. Well, what we are seeing is a loss of dynamics in the German economy as well as in the world economy. There's a very close relationship between the German and the world economy. We've seen that back in 2009 was a downturn. Germany suffered extremely. It has to do with the fact that 22% of German GDP are created by the productive sector. And in that respect, of course, we feel the chilliness of the world economy currently. But the good thing about it is that there is a big difference to the year 2008, 2009. And the global economic cycle, we don't have any opportunistic characteristics, which was the case in 2008. The global inventory cycle has no really high level at the current stage, and the same accounts for the capital investment cycle as well as the consumption cycle. The consumption cycle is being determined by income and not by new debt. And on the capital investment cycle, we are running at a very, very low level. In that respect, what we are seeing in the German economy is that there are no cancellations of orders, which was the case in 2008, 2009. And the German economy, whether we talk about the chemical industry or whether we talk about companies producing capital goods, is not, and also the car industry, we are not seeing any really weakness. We are seeing weaker orders, but basically these industries are will fully operate for the next 10 to 12 months.
Is there any change in terms of where the demand is coming from? Is demand in Europe declining and demand in Asia picking up?
Well, we're seeing that the German demand is very, very stable, and we see on the order side a lack of foreign orders currently. On the consumption cycle, we see a very, very stable environment of a slight improvement.
What about inflation? They say it's 3%. I think it's probably more than that. ECB just lowered interest rates 0.25% or 0.5%. More inflation?
Well, I'm claiming that inflation will go back to the level of the 80s in the global economy. Why? There's a genuine misunderstanding about the reason why we had a disinflationary environment in the past 15 years. It had to do with the opening after the fall of the communism, and we had overcapacities in the labor markets, in the global labor markets, and also given the aspect of capital. And these aspects, what we are seeing now is that in the emerging market countries, inflation is picking up because the capacities, the overcapacities they offer to the world economy throughout the last 20 years have been used up, at least those that were cheaply to be exploited. And we see inflation in India at 9%, in China at 6%, South America 5 to 10%, in the US at 3.9%, in the Eurozone at 3%, UK 5%. The fact is, the reason for the pickup of inflation has to do with a lack of overcapacities in comparison to past years. And in that respect, unless the world economy doesn't go into a global recession, I can't see inflation really receding. The central banks got it wrong for the last 2 years. If you look at the forecasts of the Fed, of the ECB, their forecasts on the inflation have been terribly wrong, and they will remain wrong in my eyes. I see a further pickup, slight pickup next year in inflation. On the inflationary side, in that respect, the central bank policies are a little bit anti-authoritarian, I would say. Some of the 68 generation obviously conquered central banks in the Western world.
Do you see double-digit inflation?
I can't see it currently, but in case that we enlarge the money supply furthermore in a very aggressive fashion, we cannot rule it out. But for the current time, I think we will see higher inflation. At the path, I would say, for the next years, for the Eurozone, something in between 2.5% to 5.5%. For the US and UK, it's higher the way they calculate, and I want to point out in America in particular, the way they calculate, it's going to be something in between 3 to 7%. And if you take John Williams' shadow government statistics, you know that the way to calculate inflation was much better in 1990. One of the reasons why you see the impoverishment of the middle class in the US has to do with the wrong level of consumer price inflation due to the Boskin Commission back in 1992, I think it was.
Yeah, I follow John Williams's work very closely, and just for the benefit of the viewers of this video, one of the things that he does is he uses the model to calculate inflation that the federal government in the States used back in 1980 when President Carter was still in the White House, without any of the subsequent changes that have been made to it. And according to that model, the inflation rate today in the United States is 11%, not the stated, a much lower number.
And I think an implicit proof of John Williams being right to use these methodologies is the fact that you see the impoverishment. I mean, you're standing in the US, I think at the moment, is a rate of 15.1%. And it's a different impoverishment than in Western Europe, where we still have a very well-equipped social welfare system. So being poor in America is something different from being poor in Europe.
Yeah, in fact, I just wrote about this in the sense that the highest standard of living that America has reached actually occurred in 1973. Since 1973, the standard of living as measured by real wealth, the real standard of living, has been declining, and that was absolutely the peak. And I drew the conclusion that it was in part from 1971 when the U.S. went off the gold standard and was debasing, the currency as a consequence.